farmers were particularly attracted to this area?
You know, one of the things that I thought about was, well, they saw the opportunity because it was much like their homeland. I'm not sure about that. It's very nice and cool. It's by the seashore. They were maybe used to the oceanside living. In fact, the Ishibashis and many of the Wakayama families here came from areas like this in Japan, where they could alternate between a fishing occupation, and if fishing turned bad, they would go to farming, because they all knew how to do some farming. The other part possibly was that they were left alone, because hardly anybody came out here. I'm not sure what it was that they were able to keep their Japanese culture and language without anybody telling them you have to change.
Right.
Of course, when their kids started going to school, the school district said, no, you got to speak English in the schools. But as soon as they went home, they were speaking Japanese, going to the Japanese language school, going to judo school. So a lot of the culture persisted all through until World War II.
Yeah. This was once all agricultural land. The Japanese were able to lease the land until it was needed for houses, and then they'd have to leave. But the Japanese farmhouses here had a successful produce business, selling not only to local folks, but also trucking their produce to downtown Los Angeles. And as you look down the hill from left to right, you can get a sense of the area where the farms once stood. The breakout of World War II basically put an end to our Japanese farming families. With Executive Order 9066, most of our farmers were incarcerated at the Poston camp in Arizona. What were the effects of 9066?
There's a story that they had contact with a Navy officer who lived in Mira Leste. He had quite a bit of knowledge about the security of the coastal area. So he told the farmers, you're going to have to leave sooner or later. Well, the farmers decided, well, sooner is okay, because then we'll have time to pack up stuff and go somewhere. Well, they sent out, I guess, 4 or maybe a half a dozen young men in their 20s to go search for a good place to move, because they all wanted to move in a group. By the 1940s, they were all very closely knitted, regardless of where they came from in Japan. They found a spot in Central California, near what's now the town of Lindsay. In fact, they were in the Strathmore Postal District. When they got the official 9066 order, they found out, well, Strathmore was not far enough away. They had to leave the entire state of California.
And after the war, Richard, what was the net effect post-war?
Net effect was that most of those folks didn't want to come back here. In fact, one example is my aunt. She and my uncle got married in 1940, just before the war. She was born here, a citizen, just like my Uncle Moss. And she said, no, I don't want to be a farmer's wife. Now, to me, maybe that's what happened, is that when the war ended, the wives said,
no more.
No more. On the other hand, I think the farmers did well here. But pretty much to a person, they decided not to come back here. Maybe there were unhappy memories from being shifted out of here from before the war.
But also post-war, we had a lot of the development going on again. With PVE already developed in the 40s and 50s, that's kind of a big post-war development of this area, and the land wasn't being used anymore, or was being subdivided, right?
Right. And we don't know how inviting the administration was to having farming going on again.
Back on the peninsula,
The Ishibashis just farmed a great number of acres here.
Right.
They took over quite a few of the former leases
Right.
and farmed pretty much everything that was arable here in the peninsula.
You know, Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to come out and talk to us about this. This is, nobody knows this as much as you do about the farming here, and it's really nice to have an expert's view.
Yeah, belonging to one of the farming families here, not in this part of Peninsula, but over in Granada Bay, we got to know quite a few of the farming families out here.
Yeah.
We would go to annual picnics out at the Abalone Cove and at White Point. Things have changed a little bit. I understand Abalone Cove is a little bit inaccessible because of the falling rocks out at the point.
Yeah.
And I went to White Point maybe 3 weeks ago, and you could still see the foundation of the old swimming pool, but not exactly the same. I remember those days when we used to pick seaweed to go home and pickle, or I'm not sure what you call it, pickle.
Yeah,
Scudani.
the marinade, Scudani,
Yeah.
yeah.